So right now you're working out of Saigon, right? And that was like a
Yeah.
recent move from LA.
Yeah,
So
I would say for the last 10 years or so, I was kind of splitting my time between LA and Saigon. Um, because I got my first feature film chance to write a feature film uh, in the Vietnamese film industry. And that kind of led to more work and more projects while I also continue to develop projects and pitch and try to set up stuff in LA. But a lot of the work has actually been coming from Vietnam, and I just feel I'm connected to this country. I'm Vietnamese American. So after COVID, I realized that everyone is working through Zoom these days. Everything is global, and I did like Saigon a lot as a city, and I wanted to spend more time here. So I made the decision to be here more permanently, I think 2022, 2023. I've had two feature films that I was the writer. I had one where I was just an executive producer, and I helped a bit with the creative development, working with the writer and the director. And then I had a fourth film that I directed. So the first one was Saigon Bodyguards. That was 2015. And then 2018, I did a film. The English title is Daddy Issues, and it's a body swap family comedy dramedy.
like a Vietnamese Freaky Friday, basically.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Was Freaky Friday the first body swap? Was it the biggest one? It probably is,
I believe it
but
was the
everyone,
first because everyone calls it a Freaky Friday.
yep,
Just like
yep.
everyone calls a time loop movie a Groundhog Day. Your first one, Saigon Bodyguards, that one was pretty successful locally, wasn't?
It did
It was.
okay.
It
It
did
topped the
okay.
box office. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a super smash hit. I think it did well, and then the script was strong enough that it got attention from Hollywood studios to want to remake it.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you about that. If this is from, I think it was 2020. It was a Variety article,
Right,
which is already
right.
pretty while ago, but it mentions the Russo brothers were interested in producing
Yep,
at the time. It was
yep.
going to be a vehicle for Chris Pratt.
If my memory recalls, I might get some of these details wrong, but I think it was the director's manager was in touch with Agbo, the company that works with the Russos, and or the Russos company, that's their production company. And they introduced the project. They sent a screener to them. I think they liked the idea. They saw some potential in it. I think they were looking for a vehicle, maybe with Chris Pratt and another star. So it's like a buddy comedy. The original announcement was that it was going to be with a big Chinese action star. But there's a lot of politics with that, and there's issues trying to. There was a period of time where everyone was trying to do Chinese co-productions, right? And now that's it's a totally different landscape. So I think that might have had an impact on what was going on with the project. I think it might have lapsed. I don't know if the project, I mean, this happens all the time in LA. People option
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
or they buy scripts and
At
maybe
least,
the elements don't align. Yeah.
yeah, at least 9 out of 10 projects don't
Yep.
end up getting shot.
Yep, exactly. And that's just part of for anyone who's a young filmmaker who hasn't been through that, you have to temper a lot of those expectations and temper a lot of excitement because it happens all the time, like you'll have a hot spec script or you'll get a project set up and you half of the stuff you read in deadline, it's like don't even know, it's not real till it's real, right? So I would just take everything with a grain of salt and temper those expectations. It's a very normal part of the process. Don't get too hung up about it. Just keep developing your own material and keep working forward.
I'm curious as the actual like regional differences as far as working in LA and working in the Vietnamese film industry, as far as writing and production goes. Is there any big differences as far as the way the
I,
it's set up or the cultural differences of filmmaking?
I think it's very, very different. I mean, as far as my experiences in both markets, I think there is first off, it's just a huge difference culturally. It's a totally different language. It's a totally different um, history, and it's a totally different film going audience. Vietnam is in a very different place development wise and economically than American audiences are or global audiences are. And that's changing very rapidly. Like things are converging, but it's still a process that takes it's a generational, it's a generational process where culture kind of shifts and tastes shift. If you come and you have that expectation, like, oh yeah, it's just like America, you can just graft everything on. You're gonna have like a lot of things that you don't really understand or know how to kind of process. It's been a steep learning curve for me, just coming from as a Vietnamese American who didn't know much about Vietnamese language, Vietnamese culture on a deep level. Like I never lived in Vietnam. I didn't grow up here. I was born in Germany and raised in the US. And so my perspective was very American and very Western when I first came out here. And then as you work and you relearn the Vietnamese and you watch the things audiences are watching out here, yeah, you start to pick up on things. You start to notice, oh yeah, there's a lot of differences. It's like if I were going to ask you, hey Mike, go write a Iranian rom-com, like where would you start? It's just a totally different. It's a totally different set of of tastes and expectations. Yeah, and I think that requires a lot of humility.
So I'm curious of any insights you have on the way storytelling traditionally differs in that part of the world compared to the whole, mainstream American style.
I think there's still a lot of when it comes to that craft stuff, like screenwriting and craft stuff. I still adhere to a lot of we come from. I guess similar schools of thought. I still believe in the three act structure and conflict and all that stuff. That I don't think changes. It's more in the nuance and the execution of it that might be different.
How so?
Maybe here, like here family dramas are really big. Like it's a cultural thing, like so that's the kind of content that really speaks to audiences. Things that are about Vietnamese households, intergenerational conflict. They're still dealing with issues about marriage, what to do with money. And so there's ways that comes out in the cinema. They're just like family dramas, or they're maybe like comedies that play really well for the audiences in Vietnam that would never travel to America. You probably never heard of these films. They probably would only play at maybe like the Chinese American neighborhoods of America. But I still feel like when I go watch movies, it's still three act structure, it's still conflict, it's still all that stuff. It's just that you have to have an understanding of the culture to be able to kind of translate that and put that into film where people can get it